Hi, so today we will be discussing about the concepts and principles of engineering economy as the introduction for this course. Before we proceed with the content of this topic, let's first watch this video.
What is economics? Economics often is considered a dry or dismal science. In schools, it is often taught with a focus on abstract supply and demand charts or complicated mathematical formulas. When we think about economics or the economy, we think about money, goods or services, or perhaps government policy. Although these are aspects of an economy, economics at its core is about human actions. It's about the choices and actions we make as individuals. It's about our individual wants, needs, and abilities. And it's about how we interact with others to benefit each other and build the society around us. Imagine, for example, if a single person were stranded on a deserted island. For this person, let's call him Bob, the top priority is obvious: survival. He needs water, food, and shelter. Some of Bob's resources are obvious. There may be coconuts or berries that can be foraged for food. Just as important, however, is his time. He must economize his time, dedicating it so as to best ensure his own survival. Does Bob focus on finding water, or does he dedicate his first few hours to building a shelter? Right away, Bob is forced to make decisions about trade-offs, the costs of making one decision over another. Bob may decide that he can survive 3 days without water, and so focuses instead on creating a shelter for the night. Another person in this situation may choose differently, but it is Bob's individual judgment that guides the choices he makes. Bob's decision may not be the right one. Risk and uncertainty are an inherent part of our human existence. Perhaps Bob ends up spending so much time building a shelter that he does not give himself enough time to find water when he desperately needs it. Bob's decision affects the number of days he can survive on the island. In this case, his profit is measured in terms of the number of days he is able to live, having made this choice. A loss could be his death. Notice that Bob's economic decisions have nothing to do with money. They are simply the choices that he makes facing an uncertain future. Luckily, most of our economic decisions are not matters of life and death, but basic decisions that we all make every day. These decisions all have costs and benefits that must be weighed by the individual, and this is as true for every person anywhere in the world as it is for someone on a deserted island. Economics does not tell us what any individual should do. Instead, economics is about understanding the costs of our decisions, about understanding how we can create value by satisfying our wants and the wants of others, and about the ways that we as individuals all play a role in contributing to the rise or fall of human civilization. The question for each of us is, what role do we want to play? What is economics? Economics often is considered a dry or dismal science. In schools, it is often taught with a focus on abstract supply and demand charts or complicated mathematical formulas.
Okay,
when we think about economics or the economy, we think about
so
money,
now
goods,
let's
or
ask this question. Okay, but understanding and applying economic principles to engineering have never been more important. How important is engineering economics? Engineering is more than a problem-solving activity, focusing on the development of product systems and processes to satisfy a need or a demand. Beyond function and performance, solutions must also be viable economically. Design decisions affect limited resources such as your time, the material, the labor, the capital, and natural resources, not only initially, meaning during conceptual design, but also through the remaining phases of the life cycle. So for example, the detailed design, the manufacture and distribution, the service, retirement, and disposal. So a great solution can die a certain death if it is not profitable. The technological and social environments in which we live continue to change at a rapid rate. In recent decades, advances in science and engineering have transformed our transportation systems, revolutionized the practice of medicine, and miniature electronic circuits so that a computer can be placed on a semiconductor chip. The list of such achievements seems endless, and daghan tagay possibilities. In your science and engineering courses, you will learn about some of the physical laws that underlie these accomplishments. So, in your slide, it reads na kanang the utilization of scientific and engineering knowledge for our benefit is achieved through the design of things we use, such as furnaces for vaporizing trash and structures for supporting magnetic railway. So, over time, mo improve, mo innovate gyud siya na swak or kanang fit sa need sa mga people, or sometimes not need but convenience. Okay? However, these achievements didn't occur without a price, monetary or otherwise. Diba? If you already took the course sa technopreneurship, engineering technopreneurship, you have to consider the price. Kay mo man ang worth niya, pila ang kanang pag-process, butangan nimo siya og price tanan. So that pag ready na ang product, naa kay ma-place nga value sa iyaha. Therefore, the purpose of this course is to develop and illustrate the principles and methodology required to answer the basic economic question of any design. So what is the question? Do its benefits exceed its cost? Okay. So engineering economy involves the systematic evaluation of the economic merits of proposed solutions to engineering problems. It to be economically acceptable, meaning when you say economically acceptable, it means affordable. Kaya ra ba paliton sa inyong mga market. Solutions to these engineering problems must demonstrate a positive balance of long-term benefits over long-term costs, and they must also promote the well-being and survival of an organization, embody creative and innovative technology and ideas, permit identification and scrutiny of their estimated outcomes, and translate profitability to the bottom line through a valid and acceptable measure of merit. So engineering economy is the dollars and cents side of decisions that engineers make or recommend as they work to position a firm to be profitable in a highly competitive marketplace. So inherent to these decisions are trade-offs among different types of costs and performance. For example, let's say the factors could include the response time, the safety, the weight, the reliability, etc., provided by the proposed design or problem solution. So the mission of engineering is to balance this trade-off in the most economical manner. For instance, if there is an engineer working at Ford Motor Company who invents a new transmission lubricant that increases fuel mileage by 10%, and extends the life of the transmission by 30,000 miles. So that's a big leap of kanang invention na iyang na form. How much can the company afford to spend to implement this invention? So mo na siya ang pangutana sa side sa company. Engineering economy can provide an answer kung pila dapat ang i-invest sa company. So a few of the myriad situations in engineering economy plays a crucial role in the analysis of project alternative come to mind. So this on your screen in the slide are a few situations to consider engineering economy na maingon ni muna na siya crucial role in the analysis of project alternative. So let's say, for example, choosing the best design for a high-efficiency gas furnace. So, highly efficient. Second, selecting the most suitable robot for a welding operation and an automotive assembly line. Third, making a recommendation about whether a jet airplanes for an overnight delivery service should be purchased or least. Kay, for example, you want to consider na kung you have to purchase it as a whole, medyo mahal, di ba? Compared to leasing, mag-lease lang ka, kung kinahanglan ra nimo, but also you have to consider, ikapila nimo siya i-lease. So, mas tipid ba if palito na lang nimo, if depende sa frequent time na imo siya gamiton. And another example would be determining the optimal staffing plan for a computer help desk. So, yeah, even managing people or putting people to work is also included. It's also considered. So from these illustrations, it should be obvious that engineering economy includes significant technical consideration. Thus, engineering economy involves technical analysis with emphasis on economic aspects and has the object of assisting decisions. So yes, that's very true. And this is true whether the decision maker is an engineer, interactively analyzing alternatives at a computer-aided design workstation, or even if CEO siya or Chief Executive Officer considering a new project. An engineer who is unprepared to excel at engineering, meaning dili ka ready, is not properly equipped for his or her job. Okay, so this part is where we tackle the principles of engineering economy. The development, study, and application of any discipline must begin with a basic foundation. We define foundation for engineering economy to be a set of principles that provide comprehensive doctrine for developing the methodology. So these principles will be mastered by students as we progress through this chapter. So once a problem or need has been clearly defined, the foundation of the discipline can be discussed in terms of the 7 principles that I will be presenting for the rest of the slides. Okay, so we have principle 1, develop the alternatives. So we carefully define the problem, then the choice or decision is among alternatives. The alternatives need to be identified and then defined for subsequent analysis. So a decision situation involves making a choice among 2 or more alternatives. Developing and defining the alternatives for detailed evaluation is important because of the resulting impact on the quality of the decision. And you, as engineers and managers, should place a high priority on this responsibility, meaning ang creativity and innovation are essential to the process. So, pwede nga ang isa ka alternative may be feasible sa decision making, is making no change to the current operation or set of conditions, or doing nothing. So, pag i-judge nimo siya as feasible, make sure it is considered in the analysis. However, do not focus on the status quo to the detriment of innovative or necessary change. Okay, so second is focus on the differences. Only the differences in expected future outcomes among the alternatives are relevant to their comparison should be considered in the decision. Okay, so if all prospective outcomes of the feasible alternatives were exactly the same, there would be no basis or need for comparison. Diba? We're a waste of time lang if pare-pareha i-compare nimo siya nga dili nimo dapat ang tiebreaker nila is ang difference nila. Mas unsay advantage sa option 1 compared to option 2. Okay? So, obviously, only the difference in the future outcomes of the alternatives are important. So, yeah. So, kung kung pare-pareha sila tanan of features, then asa sila nag-differ? Mas barato ba ang operating cost niya? Mas nindot ba ni siya o feature ang option 1 nga phone? Kay, for example, kuan siya, mo capture siya og ingani kalayo nga picture or nga scene. So, na-focus on the differences nila. Okay? And the third is use a consistent viewpoint. So the prospective outcomes of the alternatives, economic and others should be consistently developed from a defined viewpoint or perspective. Okay. So the prospective decision maker, which is often the mga owners of the firm, would normally be used. However, it is important that the viewpoint for the particular decision be first defined and then used consistently in the description, analysis, and comparison of the alternatives. So, as an example, consider a public organization operating for the purpose of developing a river basin, including the generation and wholesale distribution of electricity from dams on the river system. A program is being planned to upgrade and increase the capacity of the power generators at two sites. So what perspective should be used in defining the technical alternatives for the program? The owner of the firm, in this example, means that the segment of the public that will pay the cost of the program and their viewpoint should be adopted in this situation. Now, let us try to look at an example where the viewpoint may not be of the owners of the firm. Suppose that the company in this example is a private firm and that the problem deals with providing a flexible benefit packages for the employees. So also assume that the feasible alternatives for operating the plant all have the same future cost to the company, the same lang siya. So the alternatives, however, have differences from the perspective of the employees. And their satisfaction is an important decision criterion. So, ang employees ang imugitan out diri nga viewpoint. So, the viewpoint for this analysis should be that of the employees of the company as a group. And ang feasible na alternative should be defined from their perspective. Okay, so use a common unit of measure is our principle 4. Using a common unit of measurement to enumerate as many as the prospective outcomes as possible will simplify the analysis of the alternatives. So it is desirable to make as many prospective outcomes as possible commensurable. For economic consequences, a monetary unit such as dollars or peso is the common measure. You should also try to translate other outcomes which do not initially appear to be economic into the monetary unit. So let me just give an example for this principle with flashback. Sa kanang I was working in a research project before. I work sa academe, and one of our objective is to involve the LGUs or the local government units sa project. So, nasa like counterpart, meaning kanang mag-share me sa mga expenses sa project para ma-consider na mo sila as partner. And one way to do that is to draft the LIB or the line item budget na murag ka ng it will serve as the guide sa mga sa proposed budget, asa ni dapat padulong, sa food ba, sa computers ba, sa equipment ba, something like that. So, we all know na the LGUs, ang mga LGU, maglisod sila og release og money, especially if wala siya sa kanang original nila na budget, diba? So what we did was we come up with an agreement na ano na lang, instead of money, they will kanang give or mag-share sila sa ilang mga resources sa mua. So pag namin mga field works and na ay mga trainings, so ila ang venue nga gamiton, like ilang conference hall, if na ay mga field works, ilang transportation, ilang service, ilang vehicle ang gamiton. So with regards in relation to this use a common unit of measure, now we have to reflect on saang ila share para ma-account na mo siya, na-include siya sa LIB. Diba? Like we are using their vehicle, we are using their conference hall, or yan na. So, gina-convert na namo into monetary value or monetary unit. So, for example, vehicle. Since ila man ang driver, pila ang per day sa driver. Pila ang fuel nga nagamit. So, ila na part and then i-convert na mo siya. So, mahimo na din siyang monetary unit. Sa conference hall. So, pila ka hours siya gigamit. Then, pila ang na electricity na na-consume nimo. So, something like that. Okay? Now, Principle 5 is consider all relevant criteria. Selection of a preferred alternative or decision-making requires the use of a criterion or several criteria. The decision process should consider both the outcomes enumerated in the monetary unit and those expressed in some other unit of measurement or made explicit in a descriptive manner. So the decision maker will normally select the alternative that will best serve the long-term interests of the owners of the organization. In engineering economic analysis, the primary criterion relates to the long-term financial interests of the owners. Okay? This is based on the assumption that the available capital will be allocated to provide maximum monetary return to the owners. Okay? Of course, no, if naa kay capital, if ikaw mo invest, if ikaw ang investor, unless kung siguro donation na lang but if ikaw ang owner, ikaw ang nag-invest ka, you have to consider po na naay return, monetary return. Okay, so next is make risk and uncertainty explicit. Risk and uncertainty are inherent in estimating the future outcomes of the alternatives and should be recognized in their analysis and comparison. So the analysis of alternatives involves projecting or estimating the future consequences associated with each of them. The magnitude and the impact of future outcomes of any course of action are uncertain. We all know that one. Even if the alternative involves no change from current operations, taas ang probability that today's estimates of, for example, future cash receipts and expenses will not be what eventually occurs. So, manang importante nga, anyway, natay topic na dealing with uncertainty, importante siya na aspect of engineering economic analysis. Okay. And the last but not the least is our Principle 7, which is revisit your decisions. Okay. So revisit your decisions. Improve decision making results from an adaptive process. To the extent practicable, the initial projected outcomes of the selected alternative should be subsequently compared with actual results achieved. So a good decision making process can result in a decision that has an undesirable outcome. Other decisions, even though relatively successful, will have results significantly different from the initial estimates of the consequences. So learning and adapting based on our experience are essential and are indicators of a good organization. So the evaluation of results versus the initial estimate of outcomes for the selected alternative is often considered impracticable or not worth the effort. So too often, no feedback to the decision-making process occurs. You also have to consider the organizational discipline that is needed to ensure that the implemented decisions are routinely post-evaluated and that the results are used to improve future analysis and the quality of decision making. So one example of this is again sa research I was involved with 2 years ago. So every quarter we have to get ready for a quarterly report sa mga nabuhat namo and all. So, of course, I am on the technical side sa project and I have led a team of mga kuanpod, a team. So, naay sa report namo naa ditoy unsa ang original objective na kanang decide sa proposal pa lang na phase. Then every quarter, did you achieve it? Pila ka percent ang na-achieve, pila ang wala. Then napay column na remarks in which you can defend nga nung na-under-deliver mo, wala ninyo to na-accomplish. So, because the weather is like this, because na bagyo, because blah blah blah. So, naapay column na actual accomplishments, meaning na-reach ba to nimo? So, exactly mao ba to siya? Or mo reflect siya sa remarks as kanang same lang pero dili gid siya ang actual So, na siya comparison so that dili ka wala sa imong goal gyud, sa imong main objective yun. That's why giingon dire, or what I mentioned earlier nga, ang post-evaluation, importante siya. Okay? So, so that's the 7th principle. You have to revisit your decisions. And if na mga decisions na you think you failed, just take note of it because you can learn from it sa future na pud nimo na mga projects or what. Okay? So that is the end of this topic. Thank you so much.